Okay, we are now recording, and whenever you're ready, Ann, you can call the order.
Okay, to call to order the Huddersfield School Board meeting for Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 at 6:05 p.m. I guess we'll start off. Are there any changes or additions to the, let's start off with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now we have any changes or additions to the agenda.
Yeah, I was just telling Ann we need to add that tax anticipation note we talked about last time. So
put that for items for action.
We can put it under items for action. Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else?
That's all I have.
Yeah. Have on here like an update on the course flow and cost. Will that be part of your report?
Yeah, I think Brian and I will include that.
And the other thing was, oh, it's on there. Oh, I know. You'll have an update on the ESSER funds.
Say that again.
Will you have an update on the ESSER funds, the presentation that we
I don't have that with me tonight because it would really be the ESSER 3, right? And that's it's not done yet, and it won't be done till probably early October. It's not due to the state till November 1st, and we're still gathering public feedback, public input. So I don't have that tonight, but I can, we can try to do that in October in anticipation for sending it in November. Yeah.
are we going to have any updates on?
You mean a priority on ESSER or just a general?
Just in general.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you cover any of that in your report or not. The support, the support that's here, we could go over that, yeah, without a doubt.
Thank you. Okay.
Jessica's got her hand up, yeah.
Jessica?
I just wanted to give a quick athletics update. I know I wasn't on the agenda, but do I have time to do that?
Okay, we'll add you in there. Anyone else? Okay, then we have approval of the minutes, and we have 3 of them because we are a little behind on our minutes. But the first one is July 26th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Jackie made a motion to approve. Mark seconded. Are there any changes or additions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So those are approved. We also have the minutes from August 17th. That was an emergency meeting, just to discuss the welcome barbecue, which changed a little bit. Want to make a motion to approve those? Okay, Mark? Kristen seconds. Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passed. And then our last one now, to get all caught up, is from the August 26th meeting. that was also an emergency meeting. That was just to, it was supposed to maybe be for the TAM, but that ended up not having to happen, that one. But we also discussed the athletics. I wanna-
I'll move to approve the minutes of August 26th.
Okay, Kristen?
I do have a question on that.
Second.
Okay, Mark seconds. Any changes, Jeff?
I'm not sure. So the last paragraph, it has grades and then a square box, and it has another square box.
Oh, yeah. There are some square boxes that need to get filled in.
Jessica,
Yeah.
she could probably answer that.
Jessica, do you know, it says here grades blank, teams need 8 players, and 7, 8 teams need 11 players.
Grades 5 and 6 teams.
Okay. And then it's probably the same thing over here too.
It's the same.
Okay,
That's 5 and 6.
yeah. Okay, any other changes? All in favor of approving the minutes from August 26th? Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, those are approved. We're done with that. Next up, we have public participation and announcements. Anyone have anything to say that's not elsewhere on the agenda?
So Jessica has her hand up.
Jessica?
Hi. Can I just say my sports update quickly? It's
Yeah,
not
sure.
doesn't need to be an agenda item.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we have record number of participation this year with a cross country team as well. So I'm really happy to have all of our teams for. We decided to combine the 7th and 8th grade girls basketball or girls soccer and boys soccer. And that's my update.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Good job.
Okay, I don't think there's anyone else. I guess up next is the principal's report.
Hey, all right, let me get it pulled up here. I had it open, hold on. Sorry, it was there. Now it's missing.
There it is. You found it?
I found it. Okay.
You're gonna share your screen too?
Yep. All right, so here is my lead learner report for September 15th, 2021. All right, so first off, all of our staff participated in a 2-day in-service on Leader and Me. So day 1, they introduced the 7 habits to the staff, which are be proactive, begin with the end in mind. Habit 3 is put first things first. Habit 4 is think win-win. Habit 5, seek to understand. Habit 6, synergize. And then habit 7, which is sharpen the saw. And then day 2, they introduced the core year 1 to the group. And so our motto this year is to go slow to go fast, because we don't want to add too much on there to our plates of everybody, because it has been sort of a crazy year with new leadership, with the changes in the mask mandates and everything else. So we are going slow with it. We've had some early adopters, which has been great as far as our Lighthouse team about being on part of it and being really excited about it, and we're starting to see some change. We even had, so I'm always going to like to bring things in. I'm a little corny on stuff. So we do have a song that goes along with the first habit. All right, I'd like to bring a little bit of the arts in everything we're doing.
He's teaching the kids that, I would imagine.
He is. So,
That's sweet.
so hold on. And so our next steps with our Lighthouse team we meet on a regular basis to go over what we're going to be working on. Right now, Melissa Cole, our counselor, is also embedded within her counseling lessons. She's embedded in Leader in Me. So here's a sample of her schedule.
Got a note meeting that says they don't have sound anymore.
Is your sound on?
Definitely.
Can you hear us now, Katie?
I can hear you now. I just apparently missed the singing. Sorry, Brian, you'll have to do it another time. But those of us online couldn't, I don't think, heard it.
I'll sing for you guys later. Then.
We'll send it to you, Katie.
And so here's her breakdown that go along with her second step, the Michigan model, and other programs that she's doing. And we also embedded the 7 habits in there as well. So the teachers, it's making life a little easier for our classroom teachers as well to be able to work with that. And then we also, part of my Lighthouse team, developed with the Portrait of a Graduate competencies with the 7 habits, and they came up with where they would fit in. And these we're looking at with empathy, communication, perseverance, integrity, and critical thinking being part of our core values here at school as well, which I'll get into in a little bit further down in the list. And I can share this with you guys so you can see it more in detail later on. But they were able to, the team decided where each one of the 7 habits would fit into it. Some obviously fit into multiple spots with those Portrait of Graduate competencies, so that there's a synergy between the 2 of them. Okay. And then we're working on creating our action teams. So our action teams is where everybody in the site is involved, and then they help out with the Lighthouse team to further develop the Leader in Me and develop the leaders within our school. All right, enrollment numbers and attendance reports. So far, our enrollment is 231, grades K through 8. Our average daily attendance is 97.95%, and 5th grade has had 100% attendance since day 1. Woo-hoo! Go 5th grade, so that's pretty great. But we had close second with kindergarten, which is like 99.1, which is pretty crazy. And then I think 6th grade had 98 point something. So really good overall attendance so far, and the kids have been happy and excited about being here. We did have our new hire. We were able to hire our K-4 math interventionist. So it's Linda Reeves Potter. She was actually a long-term sub way back when, about 10 years ago, for art. So she's got an art background, but she also has a math background, and her first passion is math. She's a grandma. She's got 5 already here, 1 on the way. She likes to ski. She's a ski instructor, so I may be taking lessons from her at some point during the weekends. Probably not, because I like to snowboard better, but we'll see. And then she likes to integrate art into her curriculum. So we welcomed her, and they're excited about having her here on campus as that K-4 math interventionist. All right, so building community. I know that's one of our focuses on our radar that we really wanted to work with. And so I'm meeting with the town manager, Brandon, on Tuesday. Was able to finally correspond with our schedules and get those set up. So we're meeting with him. I had the opportunity to meet with Chief Daniels and Chief Spalding at the firehouse and go over some of the safety areas throughout the school. And then they actually came through and did a walkthrough as well, which was great to be able to get that opportunity to meet them. And then as soon as we can have more visitors in the building, they'll be back to visit and be part of the school a lot more. And then this was purely by accident. So every once in a while, I step into something good on accident. I was calling for my own composter and met Mary O'Brien over at the Southern Windham County's Solid Waste Management District. So she's been giving us bins for our composting. And then also I met with Hamilton Gillette, who's the outreach coordinator. And so he came out and looked at our composter because we have a teacher who's really interested in being able to get that started again. So they're going to be working on getting that done. And then I'm big on videos, guys. So I'm going to show you another video, okay? So this is sort of how I see us as a small town working together and building. And I shared this with our staff already, but it's pretty awesome. But there's subtitles. So I'm bringing multiculturalism too.
Yeah, there we go. Nice.
Nice. Very nice.
All right, so that's just sort of how I see us and our town working together, that they're behind us, we're working together. If we come across problems, we're gonna problem solve and get to where we need to get. So. All right, first days of school, very exciting. So first off, our PTO is amazing. They came out not once but twice to put chalk drawings on our sidewalks and on all of our asphalt area, because they put them all out and then it rained and then they were all gone, so they came back and did them again. So bravo to them for doing it not once but twice. What an amazing way to feel welcome for our students and our staff to be able to come back and see the school decorated and just very colorful for it. It's been a great way to be able to meet students, to see students out there. One of the things that we're doing this year, and then also PTO gave all the staff cookies, and then we provided coffee for them too, because if you give a teacher a cookie, he or she will probably want some coffee. So they did all the little cute cookies to give out to everybody, which was great. So some of the things that we're doing a little bit differently this year is we do morning announcements, but we do them through Google Meet. So every day, whether the kids like it or not, they get to see my smiling face, and the teachers get to see my smiling face, and we go through announcements, and it's just a way to start our day so that everybody has that contact with me. Most of the time, you do get to see me because they're out, they're coming through the front door, and we're out there. And our support staff, anybody that doesn't have a classroom right away, is out there out front greeting families as they come in the door, which is great. And then we also this year, I'm out there playing sports with the kids. The other day, I got a good lesson in Gaga ball, where it was pretty intense. And my daughter says, "Dad, you got to be a little bit calmer when you're out there," because I actually fell. But it was okay. I didn't fall on anybody or anything else. But I think it gave me some street cred with some of the kids too, because I could go out there and play with them. So it's been really fun being able to do that with the kids and just be out there and be active with them. And then all the different classrooms to be able to get to see the kids and when they're at their best working in there, and our teachers and the rest of our support staff. So it's been an amazing first couple of days of starting school. Pause in the morning, we have about 10 kids average in the morning, which is great. And then in the afternoon, we have a good amount of kids. It's been seeming to go really well so far with pause as well. One of the highlights for me is food. And our lunch and breakfast service are amazing here at Weathersfield. Mrs. Goki, Heather, and Carrie Russell, Miss Russell, are two of the most amazing people I've ever met in my entire life. They serve our kids hot meals, and this year our kids all get choice. So they get to walk down and get their lunch, even our kindergartners, and they walk back with a tray. And I know some people were really concerned that they were going to spill and fall. We've had one kid drop a little bit, and we just simply picked it up, made sure they got a new lunch, and walked them back to class. So the kids are getting choices. The first day, there's this one kid that I know I can take a picture of because he's my son. But they had beef tacos with rice and beans, and my son was just thrilled, and I know all the kids have been thrilled about it. And then there's Miss Russell serving up on that first day of school. So they're amazing. They do breakfast and lunch, and making sure that all the kids get exactly what they need for lunchtime, which is amazing. All right, before I get into the mission statement, I wanted to also talk a little bit about mental health. So this year we have a full-time We Are Hope person here that's here for 6 hours a day. And so we're getting her up to speed with her caseload. And then we also have HCRS, all these new support systems that I'm not used to, because we didn't have those in California. So it's amazing here in Vermont what we have. And so they're also here. Plus we've got our BCBA here, Ryan LaPella, who's great. We have our, to help out with kiddos, and then also Meg Chambo and the rest of the team, the mental health team. And then what's nice too is this year is Melissa Cole, our counselor, is meeting as a team for a whole mental health team to make sure that we are all on the same page. And tomorrow's actually our first after-school meeting during that 45-minute block time with its co-planning time to be able to meet to make sure and see if we're getting our kids the proper needs that they need. So we're pretty awesome on that as well. All right, so mission statement. So one of the things that we talked about with Leader and me was that each classroom needs to have a mission statement. One of my teachers came up to me and said, "How can we have a classroom mission statement when we don't have a Weathersfield school mission statement?" I said, you're on the same page of where I'm going, because that was part of the plan of what we were going to do the next day at there. So we did have somebody that had to prove me wrong a little bit, and they found a mission statement from 2005, 2006. We used to have one, but never in this building, which I was like, okay, not since we've been all one, because the mission statement here still says Weathersfield community and schools. So it was prior to this building opening up. Cultivate learning today, create better world for tomorrow, which is great. But a mission statement is always something that you need to make sure that it's current and equivalent and accurate to what you need right now. So one of the tasks, we were supposed to do it 2 weeks ago, didn't quite get a chance because I talked a lot. And I ran over on talking with the teachers, and we had lots of questions because that was new. So we started working on it a little bit today about our mission statement and what a mission statement truly is. So I gave them some examples of mission statements from, state of the mission statement. They had to try to guess what company it was from, make it a little bit more interactive with mission and vision. And so we're looking for our mission, vision, and our core values. So, and we just reminded them a mission is what you're doing and why you do it and how you do it and what value you bring to that organization. Your vision statement is what you hope to be doing with your mission, and then your core values are your values that unite your team to fuel all of the above. So they had the task in a short amount of time today, so we're going to continue to work on it, of what our mission, vision, and core values are going to be. What I would like to do, and what I'm proposing to you as a board, is so we started on it today. We represented a little brief information with you guys tonight. I would like to sometime have some type of board group session where we can talk about what the staff has found out and see where you guys want to take it to do together and then synergize, and then also get student and community input in October and November. I put both months just because who knows where we're going to be at, and then start to finalize everything in November, and then do a final presentation with some of my staff here in December of this is what we want our mission and vision and core values to be for the school. So upcoming events, we have our books fair starting on Monday. It got delivered, so parents aren't allowed in the book fair. If you have students here, you definitely got information about that. But the book fair will be in the stage area of the gym, and kids are able to go in there, and then they can have a pre-done book fair card thing. It's something that Scholastic set up, but you can get books or send money like we do. And then so that's on Monday through Thursday, and then on following Monday as well. Picture Day is coming up on September the 28th. And then on the 29th, which is that Wednesday, so 2 weeks from tonight, I want to try to do a virtual coffee with me. So I'll provide coffee for me, and then I guess if you want to pick up coffee, we have some other events planned out, but then we can it'll be a Q&A opportunity for parents, get to know a little bit more about me, ask questions about the school, and we'll set that up for parents to be able to do that because we can't obviously do it in person at this point. I'm not sure yet. I usually did it about 30 minutes after school started in the past, but we'll see. But I'll send out invites for everybody. And then one of the things that we've been doing, and my goal this year, and when I was interviewing for the position, I talked about the use of social media and Twitter. I'm a big Twitter fan, and so every day I've tweeted something positive about the school. So what I ask of you as a board is that you follow me on Twitter. The very first day, I had 1 follower. I think I'm up to 22 or 23 right now, which is good. So the message is getting out there. So it's just Brian Martis, Lead Learner at Lead Learner WS. And then anything I post on the school, I do hashtag WS Learns, which WS and L are all capital. That way, all those tweets are then connected together.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's Brian Martis, Lead Learner at Lead Learner WS.
Okay.
It's up on the screen too, Emery. Sorry.
Please check it out.
Yeah, I'll make it. Oh yeah, I'll share this with you. Does anybody have any questions?
Awesome.
That was a lot, so I apologize if this took too long, but there we go. So excited. So
That's very good.
Yeah, nice job.
It sounds like it's off to a good start.
it's off to an amazing start. Loving life here. Thank you,
Does
thank you,
anyone
thank
have
you.
any questions for Brian?
Okay, I will no longer present. There we go. Yes.
Does anyone have any questions for Brian? It sounds like you're off to an awesome start. You want to-
Yeah, I'd like to ask a couple of them. We're very different from California. So
Yes.
what have you found so far that's like similar? What's really different? What's surprising?
Our students here, not that I didn't have amazing students in California, but our students here are really amazing and really welcoming, which is nice. Some of the students that were on the interview panel have come up to me and was like, I was on the interview panel. And I even got a letter from the young lady that told me about driving slow with like I have a roll of gravy on my lap. And so I was like, you don't know how many times I retold that story. Kids are kids wherever you're at. And so I think some of my angst and anxiety went away, especially after that first day once we got kids in the building. I was like, okay, yeah, this is a school. It's just in a different state, in a different part of the country. Everybody has been very welcoming here, which is nice because that wasn't always the case if you're replacing a popular principal. Sometimes whether they retired or left or for whatever reasons, we didn't want you. My wife, who teaches in Windsor, one of her fellow teachers, her 2 twin sons come here, and they're like, she was telling me, she's like, no offense to you, but my boys said they're not going to like you because they really love Mrs. Oakman, and they said they're not going to like you. And I said, okay. And then she came back and told my wife after day 1, she's like, on that Wednesday, and she's like, okay, my boys said your husband can stay. So just those things have been, just similar and funny. What's different is just the amount of support that we're getting, not only from the community, but from all the support we have here at school, which is a tremendous amount. The amount of people we have on duty to help support our kids out there. I was talking to my previous assistant principal. I don't say old because she gets upset when I call her old, even though she's not. That she has she's got 4 yard duties out there at lunch with her. I was telling Dr. Baker with, from 6th through 8th grade with, 300 and something students, and there's 4. And we have about 84 out there when there's 5 adults plus myself, so 6. I'm like, ooh, I like that ratio a little bit better. So the amount of support we're getting that way too, as far as the personnel, is great. And just the willingness to, to embrace me and embrace my California craziness, but and truly become part of Vermont. So.
Good. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just want to congratulate you on getting this rolling. I know it's a really difficult time to jump into it. And hearing good things. And I want to just make sure that you're getting, it sounds like you're getting the support you need from within the school, hopefully within the community. I just want to throw it out there. If there's things that you don't feel you're getting from the SU, feel free to give us a holler. I know, and just make sure that you continue to get all the tools that you need to do your job.
No, and I appreciate it. The SU's been great too. I actually met with my mentor today. It was a little weird for me. I've been a principal for a while, and I have a mentor, but that's okay because it's I'm new to Vermont, and I understand the rationale. But it was really great to be able to speak with my mentor today, who's Christine Bourne from Heartland. Okay. And so her and I too sharing ideas of what we can do instead of reinventing the wheel, share things that we can do here at Wethersfield that she can do at Heartland and vice versa. And it's definitely more of a co-mentoring process because, I have a whole different wealth of knowledge than she does, but she knows things here and how this works. And so that part's a
different system here. So
yeah, it's a totally different system here, but it's been great just being able to have that.
I'm glad you're getting that insight.
Absolutely. And it's been great. Anybody that I pick up the phone for and call and ask for help, they're there. So, which has been really nice. So I appreciate that. I've never felt so supported in a role, and I've been doing this for a while. So thank you guys.
I was just curious I know we have more than just the one opening. How are we doing with staffing?
Staffing, we added another para that's coming on board next week for part of the special ed process. She can be here for a couple of days, so we're doing there. And then looking at caseloads and looking how students are being supported and to make sure right now, it's tight and it's not quite what they're used to, but other than that, it's going really well. That 3rd grade classroom that we had to combine, Mrs. Small is doing great in there. Kids are already at a high academic level, so they're at 23 in there, which I know sounds like a lot, and it is. When you go into that classroom, it's like, okay, it's a lot larger than the rest of the classrooms, but at the same time, she's doing a fantastic job in there. We were able to give her some extra para support in there, and then plus with our ELA and our math interventionists, they're also able to help do small groups of instruction with those kiddos. So that part's been great. So, yep.
I guess up next is David, the superintendent's report.
Yeah, mine it seems like it's always fun to listen to the principals' reports at all of these
They
board
get all the
meetings.
fun stuff.
They get all the good news, all the fun stuff, and I get to give you, sort of a little bit of a reality, a wake-up call here. But I will tell you, though, that in general, I would agree with Brian. The opening here was great. I think Brian's fit in very nicely. I think the fact that he bought a house here, his family is here, makes a big difference to this community. It gives him a lot of credibility. And I think even though he's new to us, he's not a new administrator, so he brings a lot of experience to. We've already learned a lot from him. Just a quick COVID update. I mean, I think people are really working hard to cooperate and do what they have to do. It's always so heartwarming to see these little kids with their masks on, and they keep their masks on, and they, every now and then, as they get a little older, you got to remind them to bring it up over the nose. But quite frankly, even with some adults, you got to remind them to bring it up over their nose, right? So it's sort of the same deal. But I'll tell you, I don't know whether it's because they got used to it last year, and we had hoped we wouldn't have to do it this year, but they've really been troopers about that, staff included. As you know, the Supervisory Union Board and the member district boards did the vaccination mandate. And so we're collecting by Friday. We should have a good idea of who's not vaccinated, who is vaccinated. I know that there are several staff members who weren't vaccinated that have gone out and gotten vaccinated. I think the mandate works in that respect. We've had no medical exemption requests. And that's not saying we won't get one, but Friday's the deadline for all exemption requests. But I think that doctors aren't writing medical exemptions, right? Because if you've got a compromised immune system or something you've been dealing with, they want you to get a vaccination. That's the bottom line. So no medical exemption requests, but we've had probably, I'm going to guess, 6 to 8 religious exemption requests, and we're working with our legal department and just making sure we vet those carefully. Approving a religious exemption gives the district a lot of latitude, because we can always withdraw it if we want to, because the second part of the standard for approving it is that it can't provide undue hardship to the it's like any other 504 ADA accommodation. The organization has to be able to thrive and survive. So, we'll see. Friday is the last date, like I said. So we'll see how many we get, whether or not we can manage where those unvaccinated people are, who they're with. They've got some pretty strict guidelines they have to follow if they get that exemption, including masked 100% of the time, inside and outside. They have to eat lunch, sadly, alone. But I mean, again, if that's their truly held belief, and I believe that they're not making it up, then they should be willing. And they're also going to get tested weekly, and they have to present those test results to us on a weekly basis.
So have those been issued yet, or?
The exemptions, yeah, I think out of the 8 that I've seen, I think we've issued 6 of them to this point. So we've approved some, right? We've approved some. And when they are approved, they understand that it's a temporary approval, depending on whether the virus, starts to subside or increases. And they also know that in the letter, it tells them exactly what they've got to do to continue the approval of that exemption. And they've been very cooperative. The people that have, again, it'll be up to certainly the administrators and direct supervisors, to supervise that. We're not advertising who's got an exemption, but the supervisors have to know, because they have to make sure that they're following what's expected. And so what our nurse, our medical professional, who's part of our task force, said, that if you can get 90 to 95% of your staff vaccinated, even if you've got those 6 to 8, and you can manage it with weekly testing, we should be fine. So even though I worry each and every day as the beloved leader of this SU and this district, because I know that we still have over half of our buildings that can't get a vaccine. And I know that parents have told me, as soon as it becomes available, I'll go out and get the vaccine for my child. I mean, they want to do that, and I think they will. And as a matter of fact, to that end, we're working with the Vermont Department of Health to try to do a couple of vaccine clinics when it opens up for the 5 to 11 population, to do a couple of those clinics, of course with parental permission, but to do the clinics here to make it, we've done flu shot clinics here, so we said why not? So I'll keep you posted on that. Whether or not we'll be able to do them in all buildings or whether we'll centralize it, it's part of it is having the right facility to do it. So and I haven't even told the administrative team that yet. But
The 6 is SU-wide, correct?
that's right. That would be SU-wide. The 6 are SU-wide, correct? Not in this building. Yeah, 6 to 8 SU-wide. So it's. And I will tell you, there are some folks who very diligently, went out and got vaccinated and weren't going to get vaccinated, but I think they understand, where they work. And I thought it was interesting that just a week after, and I know some people, not to politicize this, but that the federal directive, probably about a week after we passed our mandate, for any company that's got more than 100 employees, they want everybody vaccinated, or they want them on a strict regimen. So, I feel like it's always hard because this has become a little political, but I don't sense our parents really pushing back hard. I think they understand what we're trying to do. I think they trust the board, they trust the administrators, the staff. If you're following any of the national stuff in terms of people showing up at board meetings and shouting obscenities, and thank God we don't. That's what's beautiful about living in this state. Not that there's not pushback, there's pushback, but it's usually courteous.
Respectful.
It's respectful and it's courteous, and you can always deal with that. So that's the first bit of good news, right? That we're not.
I was curious, do we know our 12 and up, like the rate?
Not yet, because they also have till Friday to get that data into the nurses. It's been coming in though. People have been turning in their, and Friday will be the deadline. I'll probably in my weekend update or my weekend email, I'll probably say if you haven't already, get it in by Monday. But Friday was technically the last day for students. And I also wanted to say that and Jackie can speak to this because we spent a long time last night with our teachers in mediation trying to get a negotiated contract. And I will tell you that we came really close. And we're going to try to get together one more time, and we think we might, I want to stay optimistic, we might be able to settle it. I'll tell you that the 3 reps, including Jackie, Bill Yates from Mount Escutney, and Scott Richardson from Heartland, have put an enormous amount of time into negotiating, and they're representing you very well. And it's a tedious process, but I'm still feeling relatively optimistic. And what we'd like to do is get more than a 1 year, because the last 3 years in a row we've had to negotiate, and that's draining on boards, it's draining on the staff. So we'd love to get at least a 2-year deal, if not longer than that. So just hang on tight. I know it does affect teacher morale and climate when they don't have a contract, but I think everybody's got the right attitude, and I think we can probably get there. I did put it. It's on the agenda, but I'll do it. Is it under my report? It is under my report. Valente versus French is a legal case that's pending right now, and it got a little bit of attention in this building because we've got a couple of families with the last name French, and they thought that was part of it, but it's not. It's got nothing to do with that. The French relates to Dan French, who's the Secretary of Education, and he and about 3 member school districts, including I think Weathersfield and Heartland, because you are a choice, you give high school choice, are in court proceedings around whether or not we can pay tuition to religiously affiliated schools. And we've got Bill Ellis he's our attorney. He's working he's representing the state. No, he's not representing the state, but he's representing all the supervisory unions and districts. It's really individual districts because the supervisory union doesn't have choice per se, but we represent you as the single district. And Right now, what we've got is we've got a stay. It's sort of been on hold because apparently the Supreme Court is about to hear a big case around religiously identified schools. And so they've kind of just stayed everything until that decision, which should be in the next couple of months. In the meantime, the advice we've been given is that if you get a request for a religiously affiliated school, give it what's called a conditional approval, that it's conditioned upon how that court case comes out and how the state of Vermont reacts to that court case. Believe it or not, in Weathersfield, we haven't had any requests this year for religiously affiliated schools. We did have, we've had a couple in Heartland where we've got a letter, a template letter that we send out that says this does not bear precedent. It doesn't guarantee future commitment, that it's pending litigation. But what our attorney has said is in this climate, don't. And the truth is, I mean, you can come down on either side of that issue, whether public dollars should go to religiously affiliated institutions. Generally, our Constitution says if the money is not used for religious purposes, but how do you monitor that? So it's really difficult. Quite frankly, every time a student chooses a religious school, for the most part, it's cheaper for us, right? We don't pay as much tuition, much like with the private schools, but again, some people have very strong feelings one way or the other about that. And Weathersfield has had those requests in the past. And I remember I was probably 2 years on the job. So 8-9 years ago, you did get a request for Vermont Christian Academy, which is just across the way. So I'll keep you posted on that. We don't have to do anything right now, and then we'll follow through once I know.
Is there a limit, like on private schools, how there's a limit, how much
Yes.
is paid? Is it the same
Yes,
thing with
yes.
religious schools?
They would be limited to the state average, essentially. And usually, most religious schools, including Vermont Christian Academy, they're nowhere near that cap anyway. So we're paying usually even less than that, 8,000, 10,000. So the last thing I'll talk about will be if you haven't, and Jamie, this would be for you as well. If you haven't gone to the Vermont School Board Association website, I think it would be good. There's a couple of virtual conferences coming up. That sort of training for board members. It's usually free. We don't have to pay for it generally. If there's a small registration fee, we cover it. But I would go on that site. I know that there's a couple of things coming up, including in November. There's the big school board conference, essentially. And it's the Vermont Superintendents Association and the School Board Association. They come together. Right now, it's still planned to be in person at Lake Maury, but that could change to virtual. And I know everybody works, but if you can get a day and go to one day of that, you learn an awful lot about. And you also get to mix it up with other school board members from around the state. And I know that anybody that's done that has found that. So we'll keep you posted on that. And I'll probably send a link out at some point to everybody so that you can do that. Other than that, I know that Angie and Brittany, I see Angie's online, and Brittany have been working hard on, as somebody mentioned, the ESSA and recovery plans and funding. And I think, like I said, I'm hoping by next month we'll be able to have, I think it's November 1st, Angie, we have to submit that.
I can't remember the date offhand, but we will have a report at the SU board meeting.
This time, in this coming, 2 Mondays from now, right? Is it next week?
Yeah, we'll have an update on what our next steps need to be.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think that's it for me, unless anybody has any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
I just have a question for Angie. Will that be public? Will we be, what we get on the 27th, will that be available to the public?
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, because Mark, the meaningful consultation piece is the part that we are trying to figure out still. The work that Brittany did this summer was a start of that. Now we are going to be asking the board's help for the next steps and how we want to determine that public opportunity for public participation. And we have to offer several different ways, for at least 2 ways. I'd say if in person is probably not going to be allowed, that it would be a few options for virtual.
Okay, so we'll touch on those options on the 27th.
Yeah. And then we'll get that info out to all the other boards and communities, so. And as you know, I've been trying to keep up with that email blast every week. I mean, I think the board members are copied on that. I know the ones who don't have children, I know like you would get it, Kristen, right? Because you've got children in school, but I think I've asked Larry to copy all board members. If you're not getting it, that's fine. And we're gonna get, the other thing, I haven't even talked to the administrators, but toward the end of last year, if there was anything really exciting at Weathersfield, we kind of include that in that. Because that goes to every single parent, family, staff member in the SU. So, we'll keep that up. I think the other thing too, I know Brian, we mentioned it last month, I think, but if you look around this building, and I notice we've been in school now almost 2 weeks, but the care and cleanliness of this building still is amazing. And those, it's a tribute to the people who do Kelly, and again, we've had a couple of folk, Brian, who works, and I think Teresa's back with us now. So again, hats off to them, because that's an awful lot of work. I will say it's later on on the agenda, but we'll talk about budgets. I do have the quick financial report. It's still kind of semi-recovery. He's okay. He's feeling okay now, but he gave me the financial, and he also gave me that tax anticipation note, which I'll talk about when we get to that part of the agenda. But I think that's it for me.
Thanks, David. Does anyone else have any questions for David online? Okay, and actually up next are the financial update for FY21.
Okay, good. So this is how you closed out the year in FY21. Unfortunately, I don't have it electronically, but I'll hand it out, and then it's really simple. To put it in an absolute simplest form, and you can pass those down. Essentially what happened last year in FY21 for Weathersfield, and I think it had to do with salary, and it's part of the reason that we're working so hard at negotiations. You want to pay your teachers a good solid wage. You want to keep them around. Weathersfield has a lot of veteran teachers. People who come to teach at Weathersfield tend not to leave. So I know that when it comes to those pieces and the benefits, it kind of works. But the biggest cost driver, and I just handed this out now, the bottom line for Weathersfield in FY21 is, for all intents and purposes, you broke even, but it's about a $27,000 deficit. So if you go all the way down the bottom, you'll see that. I'll get this out to the other board members tomorrow. But essentially, the big overages were tuition, and we've known about that, right? These are the kids in our high school who, they show up over the summer. And last year we knew that we had kids. I think at one point BJ counted them, maybe I forget what the number was, 9 to 12 high school kids that weren't accounted for, that we didn't budget for. So that overage there, if you the expenditures are on that second box, we went over 173,464. And then on the assessments, again, mostly special education driven. And in all fairness to Katie, she's online now, but she was working on a budget. She was working off of a budget last year that she didn't create that plan. She took over for somebody, and quite frankly, there were some areas of where there were gaps in support. And we heard that from teachers right here in this building. Not enough support, not enough support. And I think what you're hearing from Brian tonight is Katie's tried to work hard to get that level of support, but that level of support doesn't come without cost. So if you see, that's the other big overage of $247,516. It's only a portion of the overage, because remember, Mount Scottney and Heartland pick up a piece of that too. And so when you look at that, all the other numbers that you look at are basically within budget. And even with that, especially what helped was the food service budget, which is actually under dues and fees, right? We had anticipated, if you go down the bottom there, that's where we keep the food service subsidy. You know, we had actually budgeted 88,646, and you only had to pay 34,183, and so you know you will only, if you go all the way over to that column, you're only 42% expended on that subsidy. So that helped quite a bit to offset those overages. But essentially, you know, you're going to go into FY23, which is next year's budget, pretty much even. You know, you broke even essentially when you look at the whole thing. But I think the next step really is to talk about, you know, because the budget season comes on us pretty quick, and how this board, if you have any questions on this, by the way, feel free to ask them. I mean, if I can't get the answer tonight, I'll talk to Ed and get the answer.
Is there some way to get a better breakdown of the assessments portion of this?
Yeah, he could break that up, because remember, the assessments are made up of basically 3 assessments. One, the central office, which I think was about level funded. Then Triple E, which is your early ed program, and the universal preschool not Triple E, I'm sorry, the universal preschool program. And again, that was under, but not by much. And then the third part is special ed. But I can get that breakout in terms of those 3 departments and where that fell.
Katie, you have a hand up?
I happened to meet with Ed today about the budget and was asking him about where we stood from last year for reimbursements. And the state still hasn't given him those numbers. So in terms of we have a timeline on that.
So this
So
number
we-
may be lower if the more reimbursements come
So
in?
he thinks we may still have another reimbursement?
Well, what that rate was from what our last report came through for some of our excess cost. So, because we had some very late things come in. So I don't know. So the bottom line, when I asked him today what we ended with last year and what we went over, is that he didn't have the final numbers yet. So for what that's worth, he'll have better numbers when he hears back from the state.
Thanks, Katie.
That's helpful, Katie, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So it might get a little better.
Maybe this also has, ties to that, but I was wondering, I think we were using like the poverty rate from just due to COVID or something, I think, last year.
Right, yeah, because they held everybody harmless on that body.
Right, so I was just wondering, I mean, it seems like we had quite a few families move in, like, does that affect, if they are do fall in that poverty level, like, does that affect for 2023, like, do we know?
Yeah, it'll
Maybe that
affect
should be-
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It'll affect you for 23.
Okay.
And those numbers will go in, I think we do it's either October 1st or October 30th. I don't know when we send, I think it's October 30th we send that count in, and the poverty count and all of those pieces. So, but that wouldn't affect this, but it will affect your next
Right.
FY23.
How is our response rate to people sending in? I mean, since they don't have to for lunch. Not good.
Probably not good.
Not good.
And that's across the board. I just, Yeah. But I heard that they're gonna probably hold that harmless again this year, because they know people aren't filling out those forms, right? And a matter of fact, there's a bill right now in legislature that I think will probably get passed in, Elizabeth would be better at talking about this, but essentially to use another poverty factor, right? Because the state has,
Yeah, they know.
the state has community income, they know it, and sort of to base it on whether or not, no offense, a 9-year-old can bring in a form. I mean, that gets pretty tricky. And I will tell you, there are still a lot, Vermont is a very proud state, and there are a lot of people who don't want to fill out that form, even pre-COVID. But, with universal lunch, it's just not happening now. And so I think they're going to make some adjustments
It
With-
just worries me a little because I think our rate was, or our percentage was lower anyway, right? Like,
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
Yeah, well,
So
you're probably the
just roll
second,
with
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think you were at 33%, and you used to be over 40%, so.
Right.
But that could also be the demographics of the communities changing a little bit too, I don't know, but it's possible.
That would be a good thing if it were accurate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would just, yeah, it would be nice if they did it in a more accurate way.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So do you want to talk about the budget process, or are there any other questions on the budget?
Does anyone have any other questions on the budget before we move on to the budget process?
Because that's gonna come right up on us.
David, can you by chance send that to Jamie now? So she
You know what, that's the problem, I don't think Ed sent it to me electronically, let me see.
Oh,
Should we take a picture and send it to her?
Uh,
Should I take a picture and
Yeah,
send it to her?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's a
That helps,
possibility.
Jamie, in case you have any questions.
We're gonna try to get a copy to you, Jamie. I don't have it electronically.
Okay, while we're doing that, let's move on to the budget process. And that involves the BAC. So far, I've only heard from BJ that we have one volunteer, and I have another person who's interested, but she would like more information on what we expect. So I was just wondering if maybe we could discuss that a little bit, David.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to see if I have it electronically, sorry. What did you want to discuss?
Just what's expected of someone that's on the BAC? Is there an official like job description somewhere, or is it just?
No, I think it was just advisory, basically advisory, that's what it was called, the budget advisory committee. I know that one year in particular, when things got kind of controversial, somebody, I think it was Ginger, the town historian, right? I think Ginger Whitberg came in with some town vote that was done back in 1970 that established this joint town school budget advisory committee.
I think that was.
Was it Gloria? Okay, somebody had found it anyhow. So anyhow, when all was said and done, we did a little research on that, and quite frankly, what we found out was, not that we don't want to have a budget advisory committee, but you can't impose something on a new board, right? You have to kind of do it annually if you're going to do it that way at a town meeting. But essentially, I mean, I think the budget advisory committee can be anything you want it to be. You know, I mean, I think you can. What we've done in the past is we put out word. Would anybody like to, be on the community, the budget advisory committee? I personally, and this is just my bias, but I think you are the elected officials. You live in town. You represent the voters. I mean, I think it's good to get a little bit of input, certainly, or maybe to have a forum or meet with the select board. Those kind of things I think we can do. But I think in the end, I think it's your fiduciary responsibility to build the budget and to go that way. So it's really up to all of you how you want to organize that. You're the only, you're the only district that has a budget advisory committee. The boards as a whole do it. Not that they don't have surveys or forums or check in with their public, but they don't have a formal BAC. It's really up to you, though. In the past, we haven't been able to get volunteers. That's the problem. Or it's the same one or two.
Jamie, you were on it last year before you became a board member. Can you just briefly describe what it's like being on the BAC?
Sure. So I think there was to be completely honest, there was a lot of confusion as to really what our rules were and what we were supposed to do. Although one of the things that we ran into is a lot of the meetings were done during the day. I just happened to be out of work on leave, so it worked for me, but I know one of the other volunteers struggled a little bit because she was thinking the meetings would be held at night. So we just kind of went through the budget, asked questions that we thought were appropriate, which was sort of hard because we didn't really know what we were looking at. But we did get enough knowledge to be able to make a few recommendations as far as things that we felt could be cut if things needed to be cut.
Thanks, Jamie. Who sets these meeting times, David? Is that just based on Ed's schedule?
Well, so, yeah, I mean, we have to check Ed's schedule, and now, under the new organizational structure, you know, Larry will be involved a little bit too as the Director of Finance and Operations, right? So he's good with technology, so he's already thought about different ways to lay it out. As Jamie said, it gets pretty confusing, I think, when you're looking at pages and pages of these numbers, and I think there's got to be, you know, hopefully a little bit of an easier way to look at that. But yeah, I mean, I think we really work around your schedule. You know, and I do think that come October, toward the end of October, early November, and we usually start early. I'll tell you, a lot of boards don't start their budgets until December. And if you remember, I think you pushed your date off for town vote last year because of COVID to May. Didn't
No,
you?
we didn't.
You didn't end up doing it. That must have been hard. Okay, yeah, you tried. Okay. Yeah, because that always gives you a little bit more time. You get the state numbers in, right? Because we're still getting state figures, including things like the poverty rate, the CLA. You know, those things don't come out till January sometimes. So we don't even know what the bottom line tax rate is. But sometimes it's good to do the budget blind to the tax rate. In other words, I think, you know, what do you need? What's the staffing plan? You know, by then we've usually got the assessment by November. We're meeting with the, matter of fact, Jamie is on that SU budget committee. We're having our first meeting tomorrow. We're trying to get that off the ground. We got time to slow it down a little bit, as you know, because you know, Ed got sick. But yeah, but I think we can work around your schedule. But I think you should plan the end of November. I'm sorry, the end of October into November. And we're probably going to need, like Jamie said, a couple of nights, because especially if you're going to have community, and all of you all work. It's not like you can come in at noon or 1, right? I mean, I think we have to have them around this time. And the expectation is there from the administration, at least myself and Ed and Larry, that we'll work around your schedules. So maybe we could, even at the end of this meeting, look at a couple of tentative dates for, you know, the end of October.
But I talked to, Jamie's. Oh, you're telling me about it. Okay. I wanted to ask Brian, if he had a chance to get in touch
With Jean Marie?
with Jean Marie.
Yes, I did. I reached out to her already, and so she said, just let me know when I would like her to come and work with me, and she's open for it. And she just had her granddaughter, but she's ready to go. So.
Yeah.
And she had BJ pretty well trained too. BJ knows that budget inside now.
Yeah. So would you be comfortable at this point saying like when you might have a draft budget ready, or do you?
When do you want it?
Would like it for October.
Yeah, and I bet Brian, we can pull that off. I mean, the problem with Ed is he juggles the SU budget while he's trying to also compete, but he'll help you, and BJ and Jean, I'm sure can help you put some of those.
We could schedule first BAC meeting for like the second half of October to give you like a month's time.
That's good. And then what he'll do, Brian, is he'll send you a sheet, or the Excel sheet that's basically got the last 2 years, and then an open column, and he'll take care of wages and benefits, because he's got that. You know, he'll send that to you to make sure that, does this person really work here or not? I mean, you know, a lot of people in and out, but I bet we could do something by the middle of October.
Good.
And maybe if we could put out another call for BAC members.
Yeah, that would be good.
I think as of now we have 2. We usually like to have 3, right?
That way you can break a tie.
I was actually thinking if we wanted, I read the whole BAC thing was that it seemed like it was a town town has, it's the town's budget advisory committee, and they advise us, right?
Well, that's what they say, that original meeting down.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, yeah.
so I was wondering if, maybe I should have a copy. See if they're, I did see something on the town's, agenda, which was for the meeting or the last meeting, that they were gonna be talking about like the advisory. I don't know if they actually have.
Did you want me to talk to him on Tuesday when I meet with him?
Yeah, when you talk to them, that'd be awesome. See what's going on with their BAC.
Well, then if we know their timeline, right, we can line up with their timeline too. I mean, you've just got so many moving pieces, right, in so many departments, and yeah, it's a complicated process.
One thing that I do think that's important for the BAC, which wasn't done last year, because I don't think they were told or they didn't know it was important, that there's usually a report from the BAC in the town, report.
Yeah.
And I think that was missing, and I think a lot of townspeople missed having that in there. So I think it's important that the members of the BAC know that they need to contribute a report to the town. Does anyone else have any other things they want for the BAC or for the budget? Not for the budget process.
It's always a tough time of year, and you know me. I mean, your student count is up pretty good at, what'd you say, 231?
231.
So that stayed pretty steady. I think according to BJ, your high school count, your net out and net in is down, is level, at least if not down a little, so that should help you. You know, you don't have any carryover, but you also don't have, last year you were dealing with the deficit. You don't have that this year, really, so I think, I mean, I don't want to be too optimistic, but I think it should be.
This is just a housekeeping sort of note that I know I've mentioned. Start throwing around the budgets and stuff, we end up getting a lot of revisions. And we want to see page stamp
On the different versions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This one is dated. But
This
this
is
one-
clear.
Well, it was an August one, but you're right, yeah.
But not just the date stamp, and time stamp as well.
and
Because we've had days when we've gotten 2 or 3 budget revisions.
Oh, yeah. So you can,
Yeah, I'll let Ed and Larry know that.
I mean, the other thing that's always, that I've always been like, well, we could make this really simple. And there are certainly, things that we can't touch, we have no say in.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel, I would put some color. If it's a
Yeah.
federal line and we can't touch it, let's
Yeah.
make it easy. What do we have control over?
Yeah, that's a good point.
If
Dues,
it's a-
fees,
state-
utilities, stamps, whatever,
If it's an
yeah.
SU, if it's an SU.
SU assessment.
I'd love to
right.
see an SU. color.
Yeah, really nice little color code. This is,
Yeah.
orange is within our control, green is within SU control, red
And
is.
then red is, you can't touch it.
Nobody touches it.
I like
It just
that.
gives us much less to wade through.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, and it makes it very transparent for taxpayers,
Yeah.
for people that are here, they can see that they're like, instead of being, upset that our budget is so high, they can see that really, there's only so much
Yeah.
control that we have.
And if we get that color code, that could be part of the presentation too, right? When we
Right.
present to the town and say, here are the things that we can, and it's becoming less and less, right? Every year it's becoming less and less of what you have control over. I mean, I do think that you can, and this is where I think Brian, initially with Ed and Larry, your wage and benefit. I mean, I think that's always, you do have to look at your class sizes. You do have to decide, like, for example, you ended up, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but one of the ways you solved that third grade, right, problem was to combine those kids. And I'm not saying that's what you do all the time, but if you have a good idea of what you might be able to do, it's, yeah. But the earlier we can start that wage and benefit, that's where you'd start with that, and then we can at least have that ready for mid-October, and then start the budget pretty quickly after that.
Is it a possibility of having this, especially once the BAC gets involved, is it a possibility of having this as a view-only Google Doc? As far as we're going through this process?
You mean the budget itself, or
Yeah, the budget itself, that way it's just, I don't know if it's feasible. I don't know if it's kind of out there, but,
yeah,
I mean, having been through the process before.
I know, sometimes it's sensitive stuff, like.
yeah, let me talk, there might be a way to do something for just the board and BAC though. You know, to set up some sort of a, yeah, I'll ask them.
Right, okay.
All right, well, I think we have a good plan. We got some stuff to get done, right?
Yep.
And David, you'll let Ed know about
I will,
the color coding and the date timestamp.
I will.
I think that would be helpful to other boards as well.
Yeah,
Those things.
yeah, that's why, it's a good idea.
Okay, up next are items for action. And David, you have something for us?
Yeah, we talked last month about this and ended up not having to do it because the town was able to come forward with a pre-tax payment, thanks to Steve Heyer, but it's gonna be, I mentioned that it probably wouldn't be enough to carry you into September. I don't know when taxes are doing well this year, but my guess is that most of the other.
In August.
Yeah, August, and then and then that collection probably is, they go out in August?
No, they're due August and then every 4 times a year.
Oh, they're 4 times a year. Yeah, so that's probably part of what's happening too, right? You're only collecting a quarter of your taxes, let's say, not from everybody, some people probably pay them right up front. But that cash flow, and also Ed doesn't get his first state revenue check until September. So anyhow, to make a long story short, Ed feels it would be comfortable and able to make payroll and cash flow through the month of September and October if he could borrow. And you actually have one of the lower amounts because both Mount and Scotty borrowed almost $2 million, and I think Heartland borrowed $1.5 million. Ed's asking for your authority to borrow from Mascoma Bank, which is the bank you deal with, $835,928.40. I don't know what the 40 cents is going to go for, but that's where it is. So what happens is it's called a tax anticipation note. We talked about this last time. We borrow, and then we pay back off of the tax collection. So, as a matter of fact, it has a maturity date of the end of the year, but we usually get it paid off much sooner than that. The interest rate is generally good. I don't see that here, but I can find that because it's a municipal loan.
Yeah, I was just curious because that's another thing that, and taxpayers know that if they pay up front or
Yeah, pay your taxes.
pay your
right?
taxes quickly, we won't have extra.
Did we do this last year?
Actually,
Yeah, when I wasn't on the board? We did a tax.
We did do one, I know, since I've been.
I think there's
Okay, then
something.
then that was during the time I wasn't on the board because this is all sounding like. Yeah.
That's right. There's sometimes you don't have to do it, sometimes you do have to do it. I think part of the reason, and Jackie, you'll know this, part of the reason why this year became a little more is because if you recall, we started the teacher payroll August 1st instead of August 15th. So there's already been like 4 or 5 payrolls that the teachers have already collected, and we started, almost a month before they started the work. So that took some cash flow out of the mix. It's money in the bank and money that's got to go out. So essentially, it's called a TAN, or a tax anticipation note. The motion would be to authorize the borrowing of $835,928.40 from the Mascoma Bank as a note in anticipation of taxes. So somebody would make that motion. And then I've got the signature documents here. Jamie, you're not here, but you don't have to, as long as we have 3 signatures, we're fine. It's just a majority of the board. If there's 4 here and 4 ready.
What was the interest rate?
The interest rate, I'm just looking for that now. I know it's here because I found it.
We should also put under items for action at some other time. How do we avoid doing this in the future? What do we need to do to make changes to the collection schedule?
2.65. 2.65.
APR?
Interest rate APR, yeah.
Hey, can you tell me other than last year, when was the last time we did something like this, do you know? I mean,
No.
it's really not sounding familiar to me. I do have a poor memory, but.
No. I tend to agree with you. I think Heartland has had to do it pretty regularly. Mount of Scotty on and off. I don't think you've probably had to do this in maybe
June of 2019 is gonna be.
June of 2020. Would you have been on then, Jackie?
No.
Yeah, because you were on, then off,
Yeah,
then
I
back
remember.
on, yeah.
So we, your second, and that was for 600, that was for 653,000.
How much?
That was for 653,230. And 2.8.
Where did you get that information from?
Just in my email from last.
Oh, from Tina from the last time, okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a very common, I'm not underplaying, the need to borrow, but it's a very common way to let the cash flow catch up with the tax collection, essentially.
It's just something we prefer to avoid because it probably
Yeah, well,
is
that
up in the
2.
tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, the 2.6%, I don't know, you could,
So we could make some simple change to not get that.
Right.
well,
What
also,
do we know, like what's available right now and how critical it is or how.
well, some people also have enough in their capital reserve. Like Heartland has a clause in there. That's why they don't have to do it every year, because the voters authorize them to borrow from their own capital reserve, then they put that back. You don't have enough in your capital reserve for this kind of cash flow, and you also, I don't think, have that kind of town authorization, but we could in the future talk with Ed and Larry if there's alternatives. What's that?
I think that's something we should talk to the town about.
And the town about, yeah. I mean, what you don't want to do is you don't want to, that's why, I mean, you want to make payroll, that's the bottom line. And what Ed's telling me is that this is the cash you need to make the next 2 payrolls before he gets the substantial state payments and the substantial first tax payment.
No, yes, wait, no, I was.
Yeah, well, each
Did I hear
pay,
that right?
yeah, $835,928.40, yeah.
Our total payroll is under 200,000.
You mean per payroll?
No, that's for the whole year. I mean, under 2 million.
Under 2 million, yeah.
So under 200,000 a month. And plus, if it's something that we need to adjust and make sure that we put a warning note or something and we build a capital reserve so that we have enough, so we aren't still paying 2.5% on top of what we currently are. So it must be more than just the payroll. The payroll.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's all operating expenses, utilities, yeah, I'm sure it's all of that, all of the above.
language teacher.
Yeah. Part of a foreign teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about
That was what was that?
Yeah, that interest rate's cumulative, so I mean, it depends. If he pays it back, I mean, the total, if you kept that money out on borrow for the whole year, that interest rate comes to about, what, maybe 22,000 roughly, right? But I mean, if he pays that back in the next couple of months, it's a lot less than that. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but yeah, I mean, I've just always, I've done this for a lot of years and with a lot of different districts, including when I was up in the Northeast Kingdom, we had to do a TAN every single year in anticipate. That's why it's called a tax anticipation note. The banks are they're very used to it, you know. But I've always trusted the business office when they tell me they need that money.
Right.
You know, you wouldn't want to be.
It's
Sure,
not-
if you want to have a future conversation, I'd say that's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to push this through, but I'm just thinking that, you know, for the purposes of tonight's meeting, and the paperwork is all drawn up, you know, for that amount, I mean,
I
I
think
just,
I'm just struggling with how much it is, because I mean, I signed the warrants, and I know we definitely put $800,000 for a month.
It's for 2 months. It's for,
it's probably 2 months, it might even be, yeah, I mean, I don't, it's, like I said, I think it's in anticipation of the
I mean,
taxes.
does he have to take out the whole amount, like now, like, can he take out like for September and then for October, so we're not paying the interest for the extra month?
Do we know that the
Especially since you said the state money comes in September, so it should be.
Let me see if he's usually pretty good about answering text.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the thing we want to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, if it's as simple as signing another one next month for savings of several $1,000s in interest, I mean, I'm willing to do that.
I think that's what David's,
Yeah,
so you're talking to him about.
well, what it would mean is, I mean, we'd have to have a special meeting,
Yeah.
and we'd have to, you know, all this paperwork would have to be redone for half that amount, and I don't know if half that amount will cover them, that's what I'm trying to find out now.
We did a DocuSign last time. You know, DocuSign
Yeah.
again?
I think we did, but you have to have a public meeting to approve it, right? They have to see, because what he has to do is he has to sign, he has to have a copy of the minutes, right, which is why I'll have to have Becky get the minutes quickly. And then, yeah, what has to go in is the minutes have to go in, an attorney's letter saying that it's a legal TAN. In other words, there's gonna be enough money collected to pay it back. And that, and then these signature documents have to go in. So, I mean, we would just have to have a special meeting sooner than later.
Is everyone that, are you available?
And I don't know I don't think he needed this to pay anything tomorrow necessarily, but.
I'd like to just get
What's that?
I said I'd like to just get a little bit more information from Ed.
Yeah, we need a clear understanding, and, quite frankly, to ask us to approve something like that is, that, right at a meeting about it, that's a lot to ask.
No, we talked about this last month. I brought one for almost a minute and a half last month. We looked at it, but then we didn't have to do it, right? I mean, I brought it up, but I said, Ed said we don't have to do the TAN, but we might have to next month. I remember, I mean, I didn't have the
Yeah, I
amount.
didn't even ask questions, and we didn't end up doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a reality.
Well, I think it's just it's just such a standard board procedure all across the state that nobody, I mean, if you need money to operate, you need money to operate. And boards all across the state have legal authority to borrow in anticipation of taxes, right? So I don't think,
And I understand that, but, like, it'd be nice if next year we were able to, as a board, plan a little better on our part, and maybe build a little more capital, or set aside a little bit more. At least. Well, it doesn't seem like there's still interest. It's still, if we plan better.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend that extra. I mean, even if it was $2,000, great, that's part of the bus fund or something.
Yeah, when we cut stuff out of the budget, it's little things less than that, so.
And if it's $2,000. Yeah.
yeah, if you don't pay it back till June, it's 22,000.
We don't know what's coming down the road, we don't know what's.
Okay, I guess the question is, can we do it through DocuSign?
Well, you can sign it through DocuSign, but you're gonna have to have a public meeting with public minutes to approve it.
It can be a Google Meet.
We could probably do it virtually. Well, you can't do it, well, that's a good question. Can we use I think we can use DocuSign, and we can probably do a virtual meeting. I mean, and I'll just tell Ed that he's gonna have to, I tried to see.
David, do you have any comment?
What's that?
Jamie, how do you feel about the TAN?
I mean, I kind of agree with everyone else. It seems like a high dollar amount for us not to know exactly what we're paying. And for it to be such an exact dollar amount, we should be able to know exactly what we're paying, for how long we're paying it, and when exactly are these other funds coming in?
So he says, he did write back. He said, yes, that's the amount we're gonna need to operate. You can do whatever amount you want, but we have to do paperwork. Just what I said, essentially. But I also said, if I send you the link and you sign on, I mean, we could ask him questions tonight about why it's $835,000. It's only $740. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I've never had a board balk at borrowing what they need to operate the school, right? I mean, so
I don't think it's.
so I didn't anticipate, if I had anticipated a lot of questions, I would have had Ed here, or I would have had a breakdown of what he's got to spend over the next couple of months. I've just kind of always, trusted the business office but I mean.
It's balking, it's shocked.
Well, Heartland just borrowed $2 million. Mount Scottney just borrowed $1.5 million, and we did it in about 10 minutes. I'm not trying to, I'm just saying, this is standard operating.
And maybe they are a board that has.
You mean maybe they've done it often enough? Yeah. I mean, they don't do it every year either, but they do it on occasion.
And again, to reiterate what James said, we just need to understand, how long are we talking? 2 months, is it?
Got to clear payroll, but.
Say that again?
So we've got to clear payroll, but.
Yeah, you got to clear payroll,
I mean, it's,
and luckily we probably have another week because the pay period didn't end until Friday. So we don't have another payroll until October 1st.
More time, what was the total now?
$835,928.40.
And keep in mind that it's not just Weathersfield's payroll, right? In other words, the assessment is rolled in there too, right? So essentially, you've got, I don't know, $6 million in special ed costs, and probably 80% of that is special education. I'm sorry, is wages and benefits. So you're paying all those people who are also here, right, and working for special education. So it's not just your payroll, but it's also the SU
Now we're
payroll.
getting somewhere.
That's
Now
good
we're starting to
information.
understand.
That's
Yeah.
good information.
Yeah. And in order for him to draw the assessment from Weathersfield, I'm sure, or the first batch of the assessment, to make those SU payrolls, and remember, we started everybody early. I mean, you don't have enough pencils or pens to make 800. This has got to be all payroll, benefits, FICA. I mean, there might be some other, dues and fees and those kinds of things, but I bet that's it. I mean, I'm sure that would be what's driving it.
And he's thinking.
I would just be curious to know from Ed,
I'm gonna email him the link.
How-
It looks
how
like
much
it's gonna come on.
if we would be able to save if we broke that, like instead of doing the 2 months, if we broke it into a month.
Let me get the link to
We
this.
can certainly approve it again next month.
Are we planning on paying this back in 2 months?
Well, I know he tries to pay it back as quickly as he can. Hold on a second.
Yeah, yes, this is also a question for the town, right? We should have participation.
Well, they wouldn't,
The town and,
I mean, they wouldn't,
well, that's in the recycling, what's coming in.
yeah, I mean, I think that part of, when you described how you collect taxes 4 times a year,
Yeah,
so the average taxpayer is probably paying just a quarter of what they owe,
Yeah.
right? Whereas that tax rate is based on a whole year. Our ability to run the school is based on a whole year's worth of taxes, right? So I bet that's another part of it. Let me
Yeah.
see.
It's been quarterly for, forever, at least 25 years, whatever. Yeah.
But again, remember too, 2/3 of your budget comes from state aid, right? Whether it's special ed reimbursements, whether it's the general state aid fund. But they don't start sending their checks out because they're in the same boat. They're still, so I think that's part of the problem, is that these checks that. Yeah, Ed is on. Ed, can you hear us? I see you're on. Can you hear us, Ed? I think your volume, you might be muted. Well, the last time you did it, you said it was 2020, right?
Yeah.
Ed, can you hear me? He's on.
Ed,
Or in 2020.
Jamie, you can still hear me, right? Okay, good. So I'm sure Ed can hear me. He's just trying to probably get his sound worked out.
It looks like he's muted.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know how that feels because last night not able to get into the meeting that we had set up. And
He says my mic is on, but it's not. You see.
Can you just type his answers into the chat?
Can you hear us, Ed? Just text me if you can hear us. Yeah, you had to sign back in, right, Jackie?
Yeah.
Okay, he said I can hear you. It just shows that your mic is not on. I don't know whether that's.
Ed, if you can just type the answers to questions into the chat, we can do it that way.
I think he's gonna try to sign. Or you could try to sign back in, Ed, see if that works. Your little red mic is not off, huh? It's on, it's not red down the bottom, the mic. Okay, Ed's trying to call in, that's another way to do it. Yeah, we can hear you now. I don't know what's going on with your mic, Ed, but it shows that it's muted. Right?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure it out myself on my end, but when I go in, I get a message that says your mic is muted by your system. Okay, my system, everything. Fine. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, now we got you. Now we got you. I'm gonna hang up. Yeah, we got you now.
Thanks, Ed.
You can hear us, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, the board has a couple of questions about this tax anticipation note, Ed.
Okay.
One thing that I was wondering, and there are some other questions as well, would it be possible, David was mentioning that like a lot of this money is coming in from the state starting this month. If we like split that in half and did one for September and then see how October is going, and then approve another one in October if necessary?
Generally, no, we can't do it. We have to do it once. The way the notes work is we go to the bank and we get a approval once.
So you're not allowed to borrow more than once?
No, you're setting it up in the annual note, but what I'd like to know is what the concern is. Because we're not going to borrow the money unless we absolutely have to.
Yeah, oh, so it's like a line of credit sort of?
That's exactly what it is.
Oh, okay, so you're not, because what we're concerned about is just our Weathersfield budget, like what we have control of is so small. And like if the interest on this loan ends up being, even just a few $1,000s, that's like an after school program for us. That we have to cut to find that money. We're really kind of on the edge here always. And we'd like to maybe talk to you, not tonight, but in the future about how we can, what we can do or what can be done to avoid needing these in the future. Just because that interest money really is important to us. And,
Well, so your account, when your account has money, it creates. When your account has money, it creates. Hello?
yeah.
No, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. When your account has money, it generates interest. That interest offsets any interest that you pay. So you earn interest and you pay interest.
Okay.
So we're not.
So
It changes.
we're not talking about this costing us a whole lot of money to do.
No, you've done it in the past. You did it last year.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah.
When did we do it prior to that, Ed, do you know roughly?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my computer to boot up, but I haven't used my computer here at home for a while. So it's
I gotta run some updates.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
gonna be a note for 12 months?
yeah. And every time you borrow money, so anytime you borrow money against it, it lowers the available cash.
It's a line of credit, basically.
Okay.
And if you don't need it, you don't use it then, right, Ed?
No, we don't need it. What happens is now that the SU budget is so big,
we have to borrow money in the summer. In the summer, we pay most of the special ed teachers. We pay all of the special ed teachers and paraprofessionals and the administrative staff. So as that grows, the cash need at the SUs grows, and we have to go and get our first quarter, assessments, say in August. And when we do that, the first money from the state comes in September. So there's a lag there, and then there's another lag in November. But typically, you guys don't really need to do that, need to have the line or use the line, because I can usually get some money advanced to me from the town of Weathersfield. And that changes from time to time as we have different town accountants over there. But I think that to have it available in case we need it is a good idea.
So we're not paying that interest rate unless we borrow that money.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Does it need to be $800,000?
So the question is, why that amount, Ed?
Well, what I do is I produce a cash flow for the year.
An analysis, yeah.
That cash flow, whenever I have a shortfall in a given month, it shows up in that cash flow, and that cash flow then goes through what they call the municipal rule of finance, and it generates a number that we're eligible for. And that's what the number is.
And there's a chance you won't need all of that, if any of it, but it's what you're allowed to borrow for 1 year.
Exactly. The why I ask for that, or why I usually take the amount is because every time I use it, it lowers the amount that's available. And I don't know, we're living in a new world in terms of the finances, the SU and all the schools. So I have to, on an abundance of caution, I take the full amount.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ed.
Ed. We
Does that
appreciate
make
it.
more sense?
Yeah.
You guys all set?
I got a lot of clarity out of that brief conversation. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks for coming on, Ed.
You're welcome.
We may have more questions.
Wait, we
Well,
might have
no,
another question.
I just think that, like, the town has to pay the school, right? So does the town, like, if we're waiting for money from them, like, if we don't have to do it every year, I just still don't see why it's super necessary. If, like, does the town, they can't pay us, if people don't pay their taxes, do they take out a loan? And, like, I mean, they're accountable, we should hold the town accountable to, or work with the town more to make sure that we're getting our money.
The town works on, they collect the taxes, and the taxes that they collect on property all goes to the school. And they're obligated under the laws of the state to pay us based on whatever their collection periods are. So they have to pay us by, I think it's 20 days after they collect their first payment. Don't quote me on this. I think this is the number. And then when they pay me, they or pay the school, they do it on the date that it's due. But in the prior years, we've been able to say to them, look, I need X amount of dollars between now and when you're supposed to send it, and they usually send it. Now, they won't send it. They're going to put themselves in their own cash crunch.
And they can't borrow for the schools, only we can.
Right. And if you look at the town report, you've authorized the borrowing in the town report.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of your articles.
Yeah,
It's a standard article.
yeah, it is the first one, isn't it?
It might be the first one or second one, yeah. I think the last time Weathersfield did it was 2020. We found that. I'm not sure how often we've done it, but I know we don't do it every year in Weathersfield, but because we paid teachers and special educators early this year, we have had a little bit of a cash strap, right?
Right. I'm just going in, finally got this thing to boot up, and I'm going to go into Excel, and I'm going to look at my lines of credit for last year.
Which would have been
2021.
2021. This is 21, 22, right? Well, we might not have used that word TAN, we might have just borrowed a line of credit, yeah. I know we've done it here before, I mean, I
Well,
can't say,
the acronym TAN stands for Tax Anticipation Note.
right. I think the other thing that Ed's saying is now that we, you know, between transportation payments and special ed payments, all those things that are centralized now, it's a lot of money, right? So sometimes, you know, when it comes to your assessment, you know, it's whether or not Steve Meyer can advance that. Steve would rather have that advancement than to have to go to Mascoma, but this is just a safety net, so we don't have to, 2 days before payroll, you know, call everybody and say, let's have a special meeting. And they wouldn't do it payroll to payroll anyhow, right? Because they can only let you borrow that for one annual period, essentially.
So I guess in terms of round numbers, if we were looking at alleviating this problem in the future, the 83592840, I'm looking at it in really rough numbers, and I'm seeing that more or less being 1/7 of our projected expenditures for the year. So would you say, in terms of really rough parameters, that's what we should be looking at, increasing the timeliness of our cash flow by for future references?
Well, the idea that you can increase the timeliness of your cash flow is pretty much dictated to you.
Right.
So there's no way that you can move up or down that line.
Okay, short of a time machine? Okay.
Exactly.
All right, I'm trying to be proactive and look down and see what it is we can do to avoid this in the future, but.
It's certainly it's a last resort. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. It's just a last resort. It's not something we do casually.
Right.
In other words, he means borrow.
Last year you had a note for $653,233.
Somehow Kristen found that. Well done.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah,
I did, thank
yeah.
you.
And how much of that do we end up actually like borrowing and paying back in interest?
I don't think, I don't have the numbers in front, but if my memory serves me, I don't think you even used it.
You don't think you even used it?
No, but I can double check that tomorrow.
And when was the last time that we did it? Before that?
Prior to that?
Yeah.
You go back any further than that, Ed, on that computer? You remember the last time Weathersfield had to do that? I know Weathersfield's been pretty cash flush, right? It's one of the places we don't usually worry about cash.
Well, I don't like to use the language cash flush. I think Weathersfield has always, when a school district runs a surplus, and Weathersfield in the past has had surpluses, so that means that there's money in the budget, even when there's money in the bank because you didn't spend as much as you should have the year before. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because we don't run a separate fund for capital reserve or any of that. It's all in the same fund.
So, to add to what Ed was saying, we have had a surplus for several years. We've had it
Yeah.
for a long time. And part of that was even the bus fund. I think we broke it.
Yeah, you did have that to tap into.
And then what was felt and is, that's taxpayer money. It shouldn't be in
Yeah,
half, we're gonna cut it in half. And
you put that toward taxes.
so
to-
now
to
that's
reduce
why we're
taxes.
starting to feel this, and you recall, Ed saying that, and
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope. So,
Yeah, so they were just talking about the surpluses, Ed, and the bus fund that used to be there and, yeah.
and it certainly was one of those. Or- I'm okay with this.
You okay now?
Thank you very much, Ed. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So does,
I would be prepared to make that motion.
Yeah, so just make sure you get the amount in there. And again, Becky, you're gonna be listening to this recording, but it's $835,928.40. Authorization to borrow that as a line of credit from Mascoma Bank as a tax anticipation note. So that, Becky will get the motion right, I'm sure.
With an interest rate of 2.65%.
2.6, at an interest rate of 2.65%. Let me make sure I've got that exact. 2.65%, yeah.
does he have to actually say that, or?
Yeah, I put the interest rate in there, yeah. I put it in there.
All right, I'd like to offer a motion that we authorize, that we authorize.
The borrowing of,
The borrowing of $835,928.40 from Mascoma Bank at an APR of 2.65
for this fiscal
for
year.
the
Tax anticipation.
Yeah, tax anticipation.
I'll second it. Becky seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Jamie, did you vote yes?
Jamie voted yes, so that's unanimous.
Okay, so that's 5-0. And then I'll pass this paperwork around. Jamie, don't worry about it, as long as we've got, and you can do it either now or at the end of the board meeting. Everybody, there's about 4 pages you've got to sign. And your name is right there in terms of signing. And thanks, Ed, for coming on, because because we do this, and I guess we haven't done this often with Weathersfield as we have with the other districts, it's just sort of a natural piece, but they were starting to ask questions I couldn't answer, so I'm glad you came on.
Well, the nice thing about having SAPA air this is we might be able to reference it in the future.
Yeah, and also the fact that, it's a line of credit and we may not even have to use it, so that's good.
I'm correcting the spelling of my name.
Yeah, I don't know who did that, but I know how to spell it.
Okay, I guess we can do this sort of after the
And
meeting.
Jamie wrote in the, she's at the school dropping our son off every morning, so if we need her signature, I can get that for us tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's good, and then we can run it right down at the central office.
Okay, I'll do that tomorrow, so just leave it with me.
Thanks, Jamie.
Do we have any more items for action? I don't think so.
No, I think that's no other items, just the next agenda items.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about making budget a pretty good part of the
Yeah.
agenda next time. So FY23 budget.
I think we should solidify the BAC.
Yeah, BAC determination, and you and BJ can put out an all call.
We'll put out another message. I'll speak to Brandon on Tuesday about the town BAC, and we'll work on that budget. We can have it color coded.
We'll probably do another teacher negotiation update, hopefully with good news.
And ESSER 3 money.
ESSER 3, I think by then, yeah, because we will have had the SU meeting, so we can then probably report out at the local boards as well. That's probably a good, healthy agenda, especially with budget discussions.
Yeah.
I'll have 3 songs.
And we'll have the usual COVID update from you and.
Yeah, and Brian's report.
Does anyone have anything else they want to add to this? Okay. Does anyone have any need for an executive session?
I'm good, we're good.
Okay.
That's usually a good sign. We
Okay.
don't need one.
All right, you can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Crystal moved, Mark seconded?
Mark seconded, yep. All in favor, say aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Okay, I just have to finish signing this.